Fadden retained. The LNP holds on to the Gold Coast seat vacated by Stuart Robert as the Greens suffer a drop in their vote. A man charged with murder after a shooting in Adelaide that left one woman dead and triggered a standoff with police. At least 31 dead in landslides and floods amid days of torrential rain in South Korea. And in sport, Carlton looks to the final series as they end Port Adelaide's 13-game winning streak in the AFL. Good evening. The Liberal National Party has easily retained the federal seat of Fadden at a by-election last night. Labor's vote in the Gold Coast seat was virtually unchanged, while the Greens suffered a 4% drop in their vote, being surpassed on primaries by the Legalised Cannabis Party. National Affairs editor Austin Pollock has the latest developments.
This result isn't coming as much as a surprise, with the LNP, who were largely expected to retain the seat, and $600,000 put into their campaign following the resignation of Liberal National MP and former Minister Stuart Robert. Peter Dutton is, however, claiming that the swing away from the ALP is due to these current cost of living pressures. However, Treasurer Jim Chalmers this morning has told ABC's Insiders program that the party is neither surprised nor is it troubled by the result.
Was entirely what was expected. If anything, the LNP underperformed against the historical average, and that's after spending more than $500,000 on the seat, which we think was probably at least 10 times what Labor spent on the seat.
But was there any message, do you think, for the government on cost of living?
Oh, look, we already understood before this by-election in Fadden that people are under the pump. That's why the primary focus of my two budgets, the government's economic plan, the primary focus of the government is in providing some cost of living help so we can take some of the edge off these pressures without adding to inflation.
Cameron Caldwell has retained the seat for the party with a 2.4% swing to the LNP. Now, this is traditionally a safe LNP seat, with the seat being held by them since 1984. Now, in the two-party preferred, the LNP leading with 63% of the vote, and the Labor Party with just 37%. Now, Treasurer Jim Chalmers has said that anything below a 4% swing is embarrassing for Peter Dutton. However, the LNP don't seem to agree.
The people of Fadden are like other people right across the country in marginal seats in outer metropolitan areas. People are hurting at the moment, and the Labor economic experiment is failing Australians. Labor's energy experiment is failing Australians. And as you moved around the booths, you get people who are raising important issues, their mortgages.
There is so many things that I want to say tonight, and I just am so honoured and humbled that I've been elected as the representative for Fadden. And it means a lot to me that the community today and over the last 2 weeks of voting, and when they sent their postals back, sent that message of support to me and to our party so strongly.
Now, certainly not a great night for the Greens either, seeing a 4.5% swing away from them with their candidate Scott Turner. However, legalised cannabis are facing a 7.41% swing towards them, so obviously a minor win with that figure. Peter Dutton has wasted no time in changing pace to the Queensland state election.
David, thank you so much. Our state more than ever needs a new start, and David Crisafulli, I think, will be the next Premier of the state.
We are on the right path as a party. We have a great leader, and we will return to government.
So it's clearly a nice and somewhat much needed victory for the LNP and indeed Peter Dutton. Does it say much about Labor? Well, likely not. And this is what senior party officials within the ALP believe. But no doubt the party will be taking note of this loss, particularly if the government's handling of cost of living pressures ends up being detrimental to Labor over the next few years.
A man has been charged with murder after a shooting in Adelaide that left one woman dead and triggered a standoff with police. Yesterday afternoon, authorities were called to a house in Campbelltown in Adelaide's east following reports of gunshots and found one woman dead at the scene. A second woman was taken to hospital with serious injuries. It triggered an hour-long standoff that eventually ended after a 41-year-old man surrendered following negotiations. He has now been charged with murder and attempted murder. The Victorian State Government has unveiled gambling reforms. Gamblers will now only be able to have a maximum of $100 put into an electronic gaming machine, down from $1,000. Carded play will also be mandatory for poker machines. Premier Dan Andrews says the aim is to keep people safe.
The advent of really important technology means that there's more steps, there's further steps that we can take now. And there's also some things that I think are really important for us to do, technology or no technology. So today we are announcing a really significant package of reform. It will mean that Victoria is at the forefront of trying to deal with gambling related harm. We will have on any measure the best and strongest system, particularly as it relates to electronic gaming machines anywhere in our country, and some would argue anywhere in the world.
Additionally, all venues with poker machines will be required to close gaming areas between 4 a.m. and 10 a.m, with the exception of Crown Casino. Treasurer Jim Chalmers says the new Reserve Bank Governor will take the bank forward. Michelle Bullock is set to replace Philip Lowe in the RBA role. He did not have his 7-year contract extended by the government.
I cherish the Reserve Bank's independence. I'm looking to invest in that independence rather than undermine or diminish it. So this was never about really one person or really any of the decisions taken in the recent past or any of the commentary in the recent past. It's because Michelle Bullock, I think, has the best combination of attributes to take the bank forward. She's an outstanding economist, a respected leader, and I'm really proud of the appointment that we made on Friday.
Reaction to Lowe's departure continues. Green Senator Nick McKim, who described it as a sacking, said the announcement is a victory for accountability, but nothing will change for renters and mortgage holders until Labor changes its approach. He added that replacing one RBA insider with another is business as usual, and a clear sign renters and mortgage holders will keep getting smashed to solve a problem they didn't cause. He also said Lowe departing is vindication for the Greens, who have been calling for him to go for some time. At least 31 people are dead in landslides and floods amid days of torrential rain in South Korea. Authorities say the bodies of 6 people trapped in a tunnel which had been submerged have now been recovered. Some 15 vehicles, including a bus, were believed to have been trapped. Train services have also been disrupted because of concerns about landslides and falling rocks. 4 people are dead after a shooting in the US state of Georgia. Police say the victims were all adults, 3 men and 1 woman. Members of the public advised to avoid the area. The shooting is one of at least 382 mass shootings in the United States this year, according to information from the Gun Violence Archive. Well, just as one by-election campaign ends, another is beginning. The seat of Warrandyte in Melbourne left vacated after the resignation of a Liberal MP, Ryan Smith. The seat is held on a margin of just over 4%, but although the Greens have named a candidate, it's not yet clear if Labor will run. Another candidate running is independent Mayor Tessa, who recently contested the federal Aston by-election and also left the Liberal Democrats. She spoke to 6 News about why she's put her hand up.
I always, and throughout all the campaigns that I've ever run, have been myself. And one thing that I've become more and more confident about is being myself and speaking to the electorate exactly that, letting them know who they're going to get. So for me, there's not really going to be much change because I'm able to connect with people on real values and common sense. And people know now, they're aware when they're getting fooled. So nothing is really going to change in regards to campaign style. I just want to make sure that I'm approachable, I'm transparent, and people are going to know what they're going to vote for.
Yeah, and of course, you did describe yourself last campaign, and of course you are a libertarian. You have split from the Liberal Democrats, so you are no longer a member of any party.
Right.
So do you think people will be able to get a sense? And obviously, you were really running your own campaign last time with a bit of an endorsement from the LDP, but this time around, do you think people are going to be assured you are independent? Because again, it was only a few months ago you were an LDP member.
Yeah, and look, it was definitely a learning curve from Aston, knowing that the community wanted someone that wasn't party represented. They wanted someone who would not be tied down and not have to follow a party line. They wanted someone who honestly represented them. And it was a big step for me because they are the only libertarian party out there. But at the same time, it gives me that flexibility. It gives me that freedom to be able to put my values and my beliefs and lead the community in a way that they want me to lead them. So it's one of those things where the communities are really asking, they're sick of the major parties and the minor parties aren't delivering. So they want to have an honest voice. They want honest representation. And Warrandyte, I grew up in the Warrandyte-Bulleen electorate. This has been my home since I was 8 years old. I know my community. So that's why I'm running.
Do you believe you got a realistic shot in that increasingly smaller margin and the terrible polling the Liberals are getting might be able to assist you just partially, at least partially, on the fact you are not a member of the Liberal Party and you're not the Liberal candidate?
Correct. Look, it's really, really hard. And it's, Ryan Smith has held that seat for a long time. I know the community knows him well. And the last election, yes, he did lose primary vote on it. But the Liberal Party as a whole in Victoria are so tainted. There's nothing that we're seeing out of them that isn't sort of Labor light, which is really, really scary. And even with the change of hands, even with John stepping up and taking on the leadership, his leadership is being ruled very much similar to what Daniel Andrews' leadership style is. And it's very much silence any negativity and keep the train going and make sure I'm leading it and I'm conducting it. So it's hard for us Victorians. It's a reason I put my hand up is because there is no opposition here. There's no one screaming out for Victorians. They're screaming out to keep their position. They're screaming out for their leadership. They're screaming out for their party, but they're not screaming out for Victorians, and Victorians need it. We've got people right now that are choosing between heating and eating. We've got people right now who are going, great, we're getting subsidised childcare because now I have to take on a third job or a fourth job just to stay alive, just to keep a roof over my head. And that's not fair. As a business owner, I know the sacrifices that we make as business owners, but we do that by choice to be able to grow. All the opportunities within Victoria have just been taken from underneath us. So we don't have a choice anymore. We have to work. We have to take on that extra job. We have to put our children in childcare because if we don't, we are not going to survive. And I can only imagine the financial stress that people are going through, and no one is speaking up. So we have to have a local. We have to have someone who's on the ground, who's a Victorian, getting in there and saying, hey, you, listen. Listen, I don't care if you're the Premier, I don't care if you're the opposition, I don't care if you're the shadow treasurer, I don't care if you're, running the big build projects, whatever. Listen, we invested as Victorians, our taxpayer money, we invested it. It's like being a shareholder in Victoria. We gave that trust to you. And now you're making us pay back your mistakes. Enough is enough.
Of course, if you were elected, you would be the only independent in the Victorian lower house. It's currently just 4 Greens MPs on the crossbench there. Regardless, given of course this is not Labor losing a seat, this is not a Labor seat up for election. It would still be a Labor majority. Would you be able to be that effective, given Labor does have in the lower house the ability to just bypass the crossbench if it wants to pass legislation, for that matter, bypass the coalition as well?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think you asked me the same question in Aston as well. It's going to be hard. It is going to be really, really hard. But what it will do is send shockwaves through the major parties. What it will do in regards to election is get them to pull their bootstraps out, because they know they're not going to be held to their 3 major party, essentially parliament. They're going to be held accountable. There's going to be someone in there screaming and saying no. And look, I don't mind swearing. I don't mind jumping up and, saying to them exactly what they need to hear. If they kick me out of that parliament 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, I don't care. Okay, I am there to make sure that they get their boots out of their butts and start working for Victorians again. So if the very, very least I can do is create a ripple, the very best I can do is lead by example and make sure that our money, our taxes are being invested properly, make sure that we're cutting down on government spending, wasteful government spending, so that our children, the future generations aren't going to be burdened with this debt.
A socialist has been elected to the City of Greater Geelong in Victoria. Sarah Hathaway now joins 3 other Socialist Alliance councillors across the country, including 2 others in Victoria. The Victorian Socialists also hold 1 council seat in Maribyrnong. She spoke to 6 News about her countback victory.
I was surprised that the vacancy even came up, to be honest, given how close we are to the next election. But then, yeah, I did remember in 2020 that I had come in third in terms of the primary vote. And I think the day that former councillor Kylie Grisbeck announced her resignation, my name was out there straight away as next one most likely to come in. I think I was holding back a little bit only because that election occurred in COVID and we didn't have scrutinies at the time. So we didn't know how the preferences were flowing. So yeah, it was still a little bit of a shock Wednesday last week when they did that count back in a hot minute and my name flashed up on the screen. So
yeah, now even before or since the last election and even before the countback victory for you, you've been I've seen on Facebook a lot of activist work in regards to what's going on with the City of Geelong and the council. Obviously now you are a part of that council. You're hoping you're able to actually do a lot more because you have a far more direct, involvement.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, council did vote on the budget Tuesday last week. Feels like a lifetime ago, but it was the night before I came in. I guess I view budgets as a living document. I think council did listen in a number of areas. There was some money given back to the libraries. There was a step back from closing pools and cutting some other services. But certainly there's some things in relation to my ward which we have lost. Some of the areas that I represent are highly disadvantaged areas, and there was a social equality officer role, which we've now lost, and so there's a big question mark there. But I'm certainly keen to be working with the community to see what we can do to get some resourcing back for that position or to address social inequality.
The only thing, of course, without me going on a bit of a rant about this, that could harm that kind of election next year is, of course, the changes that have come in with the new Local Government Act, which obviously involves the abolishment of all multi-member wards, including your ward, which would pose a significant challenge to the Greens, to socialist parties, and it's unfortunate because it limits a lot of the proportional results too. Given that, I get it's still a year away, but would you like to still contest the next election, be that in whatever new ward is created for this, even if it is maybe limiting your chances?
Yeah, look, personally, I will definitely be throwing my hat in the ring. Obviously, that's ultimately will be up to the branch, Geelong branch of Socialist Alliance, to endorse that. But given that we've been lucky enough now to come in with this count back, we've got roughly 18 months now to build a bit of profile. Interestingly, you state that I've just been sent the link today for the boundary review for the City of Greater Geelong. So I know that there's been 3 models proposed for either a 11 ward system or a 12 ward system. So I'll certainly be reviewing that over the coming weeks. But you're right, it definitely makes it harder for smaller parties, but also just community independence. This phenomenon we've seen with the Teals. So one might ask, is it a tactic to, eliminate a threat from community independence? It'll make it harder because, if you want to win, you have to win. But one thing that I think Socialist, Greens, and even some of these grassroots campaigns are doing really well is, we will get out and try and knock on every door, and we will do the street stalls and all that kind of thing, which I don't really see the major parties doing much of.
And you will be able to do the door knocking, unlike the last election, which of course is going to be a huge change. The last election with COVID also hampered turnout a bit. Do you think it is important for people to vote in council elections? And of course, Greater Geelong compared to other councils is huge in the amount of space it takes up and the amount of people under the council. But do you think it's important people not only vote but actually make sure they're informed about who they vote for and actually, look it up? And we are approaching that October 2024 date, and there's going to be a lot of council elections right across the country next year as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm a strong advocate that people should be engaging with all levels of government. Our democracy or democratic processes are only as good as people engage with them. But I do understand that, there's a lot of frustration, anger, disillusionment, whatever you want to call it, out there. So certainly I see my role over the next 18 months as trying to get people, back re-engaged with local government, keep an eye on what we're doing now, what everyone's doing, keep us accountable. We shouldn't just be seeing community engagement when libraries are under threat or pools are under threat. Like, we want that level of engagement all the time.
All right, to sport now. And Carlton is looking ahead to finals after ending Port Adelaide's winning streak in the AFL. For more, let's bring in senior reporter Darby Travers. Darby, how long did Port's streak last?
Leo, 13 games was the length of the winning streak for the Power, but the Blues have ended it. A 50-point win, 18-14, 122. To 10-12-72, the final score at Dockland Stadium in Melbourne. Jack Silvani and Jesse Motlop both kicked 4 goals, while Charlie Curnow had 3. It has helped the Blues, who are aiming to reach the finals after their heartbreak last year when they just missed out. Next week, they are up against the last-placed West Coast, while it'll be a top-of-the-table clash for Port, who will take on Collingwood at home. Sticking with footy and moving to the Waffle, where West Coast's reserve side is still searching for their first win of the season. 9 AFL-listed players were in the side last night as they took on West Perth. They did fall short with a 28-point loss. Last week, their losing streak did come to an end after a kick from Perth after the siren fell short. The huge pack competing on the goal line saw the ball forced through for a rush behind. And while the Matildas are preparing to take on Ireland in the Women's World Cup, one show of support hasn't gone to plan. A special display over the Yarra River in Melbourne was meant to light up the sky, but instead hundreds of drones went straight into the water after a technical glitch saw them go into automatic land mode. No one was injured and professional divers were today called in. It is believed around 350 out of the 500 drones went missing. Quite a bizarre story, that one, Leo. Anyway, that's the latest in sport tonight. For more headlines, head to our YouTube channel, search SIXNewsAU to find us.
All right, Darby Travers, thank you. Now it's Ivan and Melly in Perth with what's making news right now on WAMN News.
Thank you, Leo. Tonight on WAMN News, absolutely yes. A prominent Perth community leader declares his vote on the voice referendum. A WAMN News exclusive.
Cutting red tape for abortion as the TGA relaxes restrictions on prescription pill rules.
The Forest billionaires split. One of WA's richest couples separates after 3 decades of marriage.
Plus, no ordinary teenage boy. WA robotics enthusiast reaches new heights in World Championship. And later, Dr. Andrew Miller's comment. Join us tonight on the WAMN News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Right, a reminder of the top stories we are following this hour, and the LNP has easily retained the federal seat of Fadden at a by-election. Labor's vote in the Gold Coast seat was virtually unchanged, while the Greens suffered a 4% drop, being surpassed on primaries by the legalised Cannabis Party. And a man has been charged with murder after shooting in Adelaide that left 1 woman dead and triggered a standoff with police yesterday afternoon. Authorities were called to a house in Campbelltown in Adelaide's east following reports of gunshots, where they found 1 woman dead at the scene. Another was taken to hospital. And that is 6 News for this hour. There is more news 24/7 on our website, SIXNewsAU.com, and on social media. Just search 6NewsAU to find us. More news coverage continues right after this. For now, though, I'm Leonardo Puglisi. Thanks for your company. Good night.
Streaming now.
Max Chandler Mather, Uncensored.
They can't ignore the 1/3 of this country who rents.
First-term Greens MP talks